Surrey is the northeast tip of PEI, but where's the Tobique?
Tobique is up by Grand Falls, Tobique River. That's St. John River.
Northeastern New Brunswick?
Yes.
In other words, a little north of where you come from.
Way up north,
Way
almost the main border. Way up above Woodstock.
Oh, northwest.
Yeah.
Oh, northwest.
One thing you will find interesting is this whole business of down east. And I'm sure some of you know this, but for those of you who might not, I'll repeat this. Down east refers to the fact that sailing ships would come from Boston, they would go down east to the Maritimes, to Nova Scotia. So even today, these guys talk about going down to Cape Breton, going down home, and they come up to Boston. So you might be a little confused if you hear them talking about, well, I came up here. You might be thinking of Louisiana coming up to Boston, but they're coming up from down east. You got that? The other person I want you to know about is Marcia Palmater, who just arrived, and she agreed to help us out to whatever extent with this. Marcia has had Downeast Ceilidh, which is a radio program, and this is your 23rd year?
Just started the 23rd year. The show started
every Thursday night.
First Thursday in February 1972.
And you can get it in most parts of Boston, but if you happen to live where I live in the antenna farm, you have to do crazy things. And my favorite story is about the old Nova Scotia family that when the wife comes home, the husband is sitting, he's got his hands spread out on the wall and holding onto the radio.
Creighton McDonald. He was standing, his wife Bernadette is from PEI. Creighton McDonald is from Nova Scotia. Came home, Bernadette came home, and here's Creighton like this. And she said, "What in the name of God are you doing?" And he said, "If I stand like this, I can get the program to come in." And she said, "Creighton, you can't stand like that for 2 hours."
But that's the extent. I know people who go out and sit in their car and drive down to the parking lot next door where they can pick it up. It's the only format in this area for this kind of music, and it's every Thursday night.
Actually, we have coverage into southern New Hampshire, and we have regular listeners down almost to the Cape.
That goes up 93.
And out as far as Worcester, but then there are, as often with FM, there are the bad spots, like where you live.
And Dave, her husband, is upstairs doing the folk show on WMB, so they've been stalwarts of this music and supporters of it for many years. But these are the guys that play it. Incidentally, these guys play regularly if you're looking for local flavor and a lot of smoke. You know, I mean, these are clubs, you know. Gerry's playing tomorrow night at the French Club in Waltham, right behind the old Waltham Watch Factory. And that starts, what, about 9?
About 8.
About 8, okay, yeah, that was close. Joe is playing Sunday over in Waltham, right by the river at the Luthier's workshop.
99 Moody Street, on the second floor. It's just strictly a concert.
It's 3 o'clock.
Hour and a half.
3 o'clock?
3 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah. So you go over and visit Waltham. You were saying, too, the other night we were talking about Waltham as a center for French activity. And what it all, you know, I mean, you have people from everywhere. Waltham is where 90% of the fiddlers live.
Well, Watertown.
Watertown, Waltham, yeah.
There's not that many fiddlers. Just Gerry and I and Lucian, John Campbell.
John Campbell.
Joe Boudreau.
Joe Boudreau.
Joe, yeah. Plays.
When he plays. But that's where all that activity comes from. When did you come down?
1955.
55.
Been there, playing there ever since.
I came in 61.
So when Joe came down, in Blue Jay, then we took turns. We decided
The French Club is a beautiful hall, and it was built by the members. And within the ranks of the membership, they had all the building trades represented. They built themselves a beautiful hall. They couldn't have afforded otherwise.
Yeah.
You probably did some of the wiring there with Gus Jess on.
It's a very strong community, and there's a lot of activity that goes on. If you're in this town, Thursday night, you want to know what's going on, you listen to Marcia's program. And then on Saturday night, you can go to one of the 2 clubs.
It's breakfast at the Canadian American Club this Sunday morning, 9:30 to 11:30. $4 all you can eat.
On the third, I think it's the third, is it the third Wednesday of the month, the Gaelic Club meets? And
Except in July and August when you can't get up a square set hardly in
Right.
Boston. At that time of year, everybody's down east.
yeah. Also, now we found out that on Friday nights at the Canadian American Club, they have a session. Irish sessions are very common, but in this style of music, it's not so common. It's more kitchen gatherings and playing for dances, but they've decided to get together downstairs in the Canadian Club. They have a bar, and they've kind of set it up like a pub with a little stage area and a piano, I guess, and every Friday night they go and the first hour or so, whoever's there teaches a tune or teaches some step dancing, and then it's just open house for the rest of the evening.
It's a good place to catch Luce Lafort. He's a
Yeah.
wonderful fiddle player. He's been a regular there. And the Canadian American Club is just like the guys were saying. It's all Waltham and Watertown. The French Club, the French American Victory Club, is its formal name, is in Waltham, and the Canadian American Club is in Watertown. And you tend to find your Canadians of French extraction primarily in Waltham, and the Scots more in Watertown. That's where John Campbell is. Wouldn't you say
John
that's...
Campbell's never there.
I'm saying he lives in Watertown. It may not be home, but
Right.
wouldn't you say that's correct?
That's
Yeah.
correct, yeah, sure.
I mean, there's certainly Scots in Waltham and French in Watertown, but that's more or less...
Years ago, you would find that in this community, there was a place called Dudley Street down in Roxbury, Dudley and Warren Street. And within a 2-block area, there were 5 dance halls, and they held up to 1,000 people per hall.
Wow.
And on Thursday and Saturday nights, they were going gangbusters, every one of them. And at one, you'd have the Kerry crowd from Ireland, the other you'd have the Connemara crowd from Ireland, another you'd have the Inverness County Cape Bretoners, and the other one you'd have the Sydney side Cape Bretoners, and they all had their bands and their musicians, and going strong. And they said that, I asked them why Thursday night. And he said, well, that was Maid's Night Out. And all the Irish and the people who come down from Nova Scotia, the girls were doing domestic help. And Thursday night was Maid's Night Out, and that was the hot night to go down there and be around those dances. But can you imagine 5 dance halls in two blocks with close to 1,000 people in each hall with live music?
Would the dances be called, or were they all?
Some were called, some were not. When you go to Cape Breton, a lot of them are not called, like
No,
at
they're just
Glencoe Mills.
getting, organized.
Brook Village, they never have a collar.
No.
The other thing you'll find is that they'll do the same basic square sets every set. There are 4 or half a dozen, 3 or 4 dance sets that everyone knows, and if the collar fell over, they could still do it all. I mean, sorry. But
Just call them on the floor, that's
yeah, they just call them on the floor, and it's very much part of that community. It's nothing that you have to go learn. You grow up knowing it.
The figures are comparatively simple because the stepping is what's important.
That's right. The other thing that you hear Joe play more than you hear Gerry are clogs, hornpipes, strathspeys. Why don't you do a set with a few strathspeys or whatever, a clog or whatever you're feeling. You ready?
As ready as I'm gonna be.
Slow march? Okay.
Right? You made a slighting comment about collars.
Oh, yes.
Could I expand on that?
Oh, sure. Go right ahead.
The relative unimportance. I'm sorry. I'm from New Hampshire, where, it's the caller. He owns the dance hall in some cases.
Yeah.
He hires the band, and it's known as his dance. Or like Ted Sinella runs a dance. He hires the musicians, and everybody calls it Ted's dance. John Campbell hires the hall, hires a pianist. Besides which of the callers he will honor with his and it's John's dance.
That's right, the fiddler's dance. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And when you talk about the Glencoe Mills dance in Cape Breton, it's Buddy McMaster.
And if it isn't Buddy, there's hell to pay.
That's right.
Because occasionally somebody else has to fill in for him, which is the most unenviable position. People coming from, you know, Vancouver, and they go to Glencoe Mills. It's not Buddy!
Oh, little Judy, yeah, okay.
We were discussing the other day that in Nova Scotia, this is a man who needs only one name. You say
That's
Buddy,
right.
everybody knows.
Like Liberace.
Yeah.
Well, we saw, there's a newspaper that was from Cape Breton that told about all the events that were going on in the summer, and there's a big ad that said, Glencoe Mills dance every Thursday, or this Thursday, Glencoe Mills special dance. And then in parentheses said, yes, Buddy will be there. But this little dance hall is a parish hall, and it's what? It's way up the hills.
Oh,
and,
it's in back dirt road.
yeah. And I went there
Miles of dirt roads.
with him one summer, and we got there, and I said, are you sure this is the right place? There was 2 cars there, and the place was dead empty. And that was at 10 o'clock at night. The dance started at 11, and by 11, you couldn't pack another body in the place. And Buddy sat down behind the amplifier and the piano player and just started playing, and the place was just going up and down. And someone told me that they did a documentary about this, and they crawled under the hall in the middle of this, and they said they watched the beams just going. Shots of it. But this is out in the middle of nowhere, and it's a famous dance. If you ever get to Cape Breton, you want to go to Glencoe Mills, hear Buddy play.
It's on Thursday night.
Night, the maze night.
Maze night.
Another maze
Made
night.
behind the bar,
No more
yeah.
maze now.
It's always Thursday night. Nobody dare try to run anything else
I
that
was
night.
thinking of that one too. Yeah. Play Judy's with Judy, make it up. Thanks again.
I mean, I'm sitting here, on a call, telling the hot water, and